Call to order public hearing of Code of Ethics Investigation and Enforcement Ordinance.
Order in the room. Order.
Order.
Gavel there.
Karen, is that you? Is that us?
That is you.
Okay.
Code of Ethics, Investigation Enforcement Ordinance. Public hearing. Fletcher, I think you,
I did pull it together, it's pretty
Yeah.
much drawn right out of the statute. With, you know, inserting who the officers, who the designated people are, you being one of them, Eric being the other, who's town manager and select board chairman. So, aside from that, it just tracks the statute. There's one place.
Where does it say that the town manager is the complaint, are you saying she's the complaint recipient?
If somebody has a complaint, they should forward it to her.
Does that say that in here somewhere? If so, I missed it.
Um,
Very well could, it said somebody will be designated.
section
cases-
4 complaints.
Section 4. Okay.
So D states chair of the select board.
That's if it's against whoever the designated, so we need a designated complaint recipient. And then if there's a complaint against that person, it needs to go to the chair. But I didn't see.
Use this
Didn't we,
first space.
didn't we appoint, I'm really hot, but, didn't we appoint John Johnson?
He's the ethics liaison.
Just the interfaces between us and the state about this kind of stuff.
So it want to be the designated complaint receiver?
I don't know if that's
I
appropriate.
don't think that's appropriate.
No, it should be Carol in
Town
the first
manager.
That
instance.
should be the town manager.
Okay.
Sounds good.
I mean, we can have this ordinance without saying that in it.
Well,
Yeah, but we should
If
probably
we know
appoint
that
her.
that's what we want, we should probably say it.
yeah, well, we need to let people know who
Yeah.
to say, who to address it to, you're absolutely right.
Well, why don't we do this part first and then on our next public meeting, put it on the agenda to appoint
Sounds like an idea.
a complaint receiver,
Okay.
only whatever they're actually called.
Any public comment on this? Mr. Fairman?
Mr. Chairman, I would offer that people who will be wishing to avail themselves of this policy will be unfamiliar with it, and that they really should know who the designated person is to receive the complaint. Not in terms, not necessarily of a name, but in terms of a position. So they can look at it and say, okay, I need to talk to so-and-so. Because people in that situation may be somewhat anxious, shall we say, and everything we can do to make them feel comfortable would be worthwhile. I also have another point here. First, this this has been drafted as required by state law, and it's very well done. But I'm always reading these things in terms of a layperson who's not familiar with this sort of stuff. And on the first page under D2, where it says any member of a quasi-judicial body of the town of Putney. Well, many of us in this room know what a quasi-judicial body is, but not everyone who's going to be looking at this does. I was suggesting we might say something to the effect of which ones they are in the town of Putney. My understanding of it is that a quasi-judicial body is one whose actions or decisions can be appealed to a higher level of government. And therefore, the DRB certainly qualifies, and the Planning Commission certainly qualifies, because appeals can be brought against them. Are there any others?
Select board.
Selctboard, BCA, Board of Abatement,
Development.
Development Review Board, that's it, I think.
So I take the liberty of suggesting that these be listed because people reading it are unlikely to know and may not really know how to find out. It simply makes it clearer.
I was just gonna say, I mean, we can do that, but it says all committees, so they're not an exception. All the committees, every committee that the select board appoints is,
No, that's not true.
yeah, I think
Okay.
it is here.
There's only one committee that is mentioned, and that is Advisory Budget Committee member.
Now, if you look at the section 3E, public body means any board, council, commission, any of any agency or authority. There it lists any committee, any subcommittee of the boards, you know, so I think there it includes.
No, it doesn't, it doesn't simply because individuals, members of the select board, members of the quasi-judicial body are listed as groups. Then it lists any individual who holds the position of or exercises the function of. And there's advisory budget committee member. There are no other committee members. The reason public body is defined is because in the statute itself, they refer to people, to this public body and that public
Oh,
body.
yeah, I get it, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So, as we discussed before, when we put specific things in ordinances, the danger is that the legislature will create another quasi-judicial board that we can form, and then we would have to change our ordinance. So I don't think we should be putting anything in here that could be changed, that could be subject to change, such as naming specific boards or naming specific positions, like the town manager shall be this. I think we should pass this as it is, and then we can make that clear in a separate document on the website or for handouts for people to understand and give it like more plain language so that people understand the process. Because I think also we probably want to create a form for people to fill out. But I don't think we should be putting that in the ordinance. It's a legal document, it's law, therefore it's legalese. That's just the way that they are.
It's also conceivable that if the town manager position was vacant, or for any reason, we were restructured, so there was unlikely, but if there was a town manager position, we would suddenly and probably unwittingly have created a problem. I agree with you. If you're too specific in the ordinance, you can often lay landmines in your path. I think I agree with you. I think we should pass this, and then once we've got it in place, we should have a motion to appoint the town manager as the designated person.
Jeanette?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will say, I haven't read this all, but I read it when I was going through the legislature, and I believe this was one of the worst pieces of legislation that was ever passed.
And you were in the legislature?
No, I was not. I was
No, this was
not.
afterwards.
I testified against it. The Vermont League of Cities and Towns testified against it, and every single town that came to testify testified against it. So I applaud you for going through it and writing it like they passed it, but it still is a terrible piece of legislation.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's
It's-
unfortunate that they removed our ability to create our own ethics policy, and basically what it does is move it up to the state, and it's gonna be less transparent, not more transparent.
And you know, one of the things they did, this is just an interesting aside, but so that they repealed the old law that required towns to have an ethics policy, and it got repealed on January 1st of that year, and the new one didn't take effect until July of that year. So there was a 6-month period of time where you weren't required to have anything. So anyway, that was just the sloppiness of the bill. So, thank you.
Mr. Fairman?
Mr. Chairman, I agree with the people who said that this is an extraordinarily baffling piece of legislation. It simply does not read well. Now, concerning a quasi-judicial body, of course, your colleagues have made valid points. I am simply looking for clarity. An alternative would be to say any member of a quasi-judicial body of the town of Putney as defined by the Vermont Open Meeting Law, which is 1 VSA section 310, where quasi-judicial body is defined, and they say exactly what it is. But what I'm concerned about is a layperson reading this, knowing finding out what they need to know without having to do legal research. Now, if you tell them it's in quasi-judicial is defined in Vermont Open Meeting Law, and give the site, which is 1 VSA section 310, and there's a bit more after that, which I haven't memorized. Then they can look it up. It's easy to look it up online and just type that into Google and it pops up. So it's simply, I'm simply offering a suggestion from the standpoint of, so to speak, a person in the street who's wondering what this means.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the quasi-judicial part of it, but I am concerned about the listing the town manager. And I think that we should say that in here. I think, the likelihood that we are not gonna have a town manager is pretty slim. I'm not worried about covering that base. But I think if somebody has an issue, they need to know who to go to, who to report to. And my concern, we have our ordinances and then we have our other information somewhere else. It's very hard for the public to find that. And so I think it would be super easy to add here, our designated complaint recipient is the town manager. And I would just propose that.
Go ahead.
I would like to pass this as is. For one thing, it is a terrible piece of legislation. We have to pass it. It's basically busy work. And I think that if we are going to give people good information, it's not going to be in the form of an ordinance. It's going to be in the form of something that's in plain English. So we can explain quasi-judicial what that means without having to go to the statute, which also is clear as mud. So I think we've spent more time on this than we really need to.
Make a motion.
So didn't we already adopt this?
You
We
did
have to
adopt it.
So
Yes.
I don't think we have to make a
Yes.
motion. I think we'll just make a motion to close the hearing.
Any other public comment? Mr. Fairman?
Mr. Chairman, this raises what your colleague just mentioned, that this ordinance has already been adopted, raises an interesting question. In state government, a public hearing is held, the legislature holds a public hearing before they pass legislation, and state agencies hold public hearings before they adopt rules and regulations. In this case, we're doing it after the fact. So my question really is, what is the actual purpose of this public hearing?
We don't have to have, I don't know why we're doing this way. We don't have to have public hearings on ordinances except unless they're bylaws, zoning bylaws. So I understand your point. We may need to re-adopt it since we've had a public hearing, but I'd like to encourage us in the future not to do it this way. If we want to have a public hearing, let's have the public hearing first and then adopt our ordinances, not do it this way, because we're going to be in endless purgatory with the 44-day waiting list, 60-day to enactment with these ordinances. So, I don't know, somebody online. So,
Is that a motion to adjourn?
yeah, that's a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
All in favor? Aye. All right.
So you just re-adopted?
No,
Left it as is.
we left it as is, we already adopted it.
All right, so
And can we just say who is going to put the language, the public accessible language to this and take it from,
Let's discuss that at the next meeting, because we're gonna appoint a person at that meeting.
We've already gone over that. All right, next up, Liquor Commission.
So I'll stand here. So what we have is the application Fermented 5 LLC, which is in the process of buying the Putney Mountain Winery from Charles and Catherine Dodd. Lauren Osowski is the chair or the point person. Right now, Putney Mountain Winery has a first class, a third class, and an outdoor consumption. And we need to consider transferring those to the new entity, which is Lauren, Jason, and Amber Hubner. So all people that we know, in terms of all the town fees have been paid. And the way that these work is, Fermented 5 has filed an application through the online portal operated by the Department of Liquor and Lottery. And then I get a notification that they've done that. I come to you and hopefully get permission to hit the approve button on that dashboard. And then it goes through and the state issues the final license. And all town fees have been paid. Town taxes and water and sewer are current. They're located in the Basketball building and intend to continue there. All of this is hoping to happen by August 1st. And if you have questions, the principals are here, the Dodgers are here.
Do you have any questions?
Can I make a motion?
Should we take public comment on this? Or?
If you, well, we could always move it and then take a
Yes,
vote.
whatever.
So I move to approve first and third class liquor licenses with outdoor consumption permit for Fermented 5 LLC.
Second. Any public comment? Mr. Faber.
Mr. Chairman, I'm curious, clearly we should approve this, but first and third class license involve liquor service on the premises. They also sell wine there. Is there any need for a second class license?
That's a different license that is issued by the state on their own. The manufacturing is a different license that the state issues, and they don't let localities weigh in on that. That's just, they've commandeered the field. But that's also an application that's pending.
Yes, it's an application pending for manufacturing, wine, spirits, and operating our tasting room at the Basketball facility.
Sure.
So all of those. We do not need a second class license because it's covered under the manufacturing and fourth class.
Thank you. Just wanted to be sure everything would be kosher for you.
Yep, we have lots of applications pending. So thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions from boards? All in favor? Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You're on it.
Thank you.
Welcome to us.
Very excited. Stop and yes.
Oh. Move to adjourn the liquor license.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're here to help. Okay, stay here. And I'll just walk it right now. I'll go there. Look at all tomorrow. So we'll
All right, we're gonna call to order 149 regular select board meeting. Adjustments to the agenda.
I have one correction, please.
Go ahead.
Item 13F should be Eileen Teller.
Thank you. I don't know who that other person is.
Other than that, I have none.
Okay. Select board announcements, comments and remarks, anybody? Public comment on items not on the agenda.
Thank you. You tricked me. My first comment was going to be about how public comments not on the agenda were at the very end of the agenda, and I was going to object to that, but now I see we've been changed again, so thank you. So I would like to comment on the the ordinance, the mitigation reimbursement ordinance. And I've tried to pare this down, I'm going to try and read it because I tried to get it to where I wanted to say. I've tried to pare this down as much as possible, but I know it will be over 3 minutes, so please bear with me. I'm sorry if I'm coming across as slightly Oregon, arrogant and know-it-all, but I spent 20 years dealing with municipal and state statutes in the Senate, and it's kind of a passion of mine. So the process. First, it really has never been acknowledged that we currently have an ordinance that was passed in 2003. I do believe Karen, I've watched the meetings, I do believe Karen referred to it, but as far as I could tell, no one actually responded to her comment. As part of the current process of establishing a new ordinance, was that one reviewed to determine what was working, what was not, what might be needed to be changed, etc. I heard no discussion on this. May 14th, the agenda item read, establishing and implementing a program to charge mitigation rates. This does not give much information. No mention of the fire department. It could be mitigation rates for paper mill spills. It could be mitigation rates for developing prime ag land. There are mitigation fees for that. There was nothing to indicate what it was actually about. And going back to the past agendas before that, this was the first time anything on this topic appeared on the agenda. So I watched the meeting, and most of the discussion was about the billing company and how we would deal with them. There was very little discussion about the implications, what was meant by certain terms, how it might or might not be related to the current ordinance. There was a comment about whether it was as difficult to repeal an ordinance as it is to adopt it. And then the question was, have we repealed the old one? But there was no action taken. At that point, it seems there could have been some discussion about the proposed new ordinance itself and the impact on residents. Knowing that an ordinance has the same force as a state statute, but just within the border of Putney. It seems it would have been wise to have more discussion on the details. With little discussion, the ordinance was passed. It then appeared on the June 11th agenda under an entirely different topic. Readopt Fire Department Service Reimbursement Ordinance. This title offered more information to the public, clearly. But for those of us who did not know that the May 14th agenda item referred to this topic, we assumed that this item that was being discussed was the 2003 ordinance, which was titled Putney Fire Department Service Reimbursement Ordinance, the exact same title that you put on this agenda. So we assumed that it was to re-adopt that ordinance since it had the exact same title. I could not attend that meeting, but because this is such a complicated issue, and you were, I thought, reviewing an existing 6-page ordinance, I suppose that there would be more than one meeting just devoted to it, and I would attend that next meeting. That would have been tonight. Again, with little detailed discussion, it once again passed. That's the process. Now the ordinance itself. First, I'm not sure that the current 2003 ordinance has been revoked. If so, I didn't see it anywhere. I haven't seen that anywhere. It was mentioned at one point, but there was no action. So I believe it is still in effect. There are some issues with that ordinance, and it might have been wise to review them, as I mentioned earlier. The new ordinance in section 4 says it will become effective 30 days from adoption as permitted by law. The law actually says 60 days from adoption unless it is appealed by the population. So there's an error right there. The term shall and may. Now I know Mr. Fairchild has talked to you about the differences. My experience in writing statutes is that shall means mandatory. There are a couple instances where the courts might find that it is discretionary, but it is usually the courts who make that decision after a dispute. Interestingly enough, shall, according to both Black's and Weck's, the law books, is the most litigated word in the English language. But they both indicate that if shall and may are used in the same statute, then shall is to be considered mandatory. In this ordinance that you adopted, shall is used to indicate action in sections 1 and 2. May is used in section 1 and in section 2 to indicate an action. So, since they're both used in the same one, it seems that shall is mandatory, not discretionary. As far as I can tell, the only point of this ordinance is to set rates and mandate filing a claim with the insurance company. But there does not need to be a new ordinance to do that. The old one has a rate policy attached to it. It is not part of the ordinance. These rates could have been changed when the old ordinance was reviewed, or they could have been updated at any point. You didn't have to do a new ordinance. This ordinance is going to set up rates, but there's no indication of how or when those rates will be applied. There are no definitions of what is an emergency or a non-emergency incident, no indication of where and when and to whom it will be applied. The statement was made that it was intended to apply to accidents on 91, but it does not say that. No definitions of which personnel it will apply to. Firefighters who are fighting a fire only, or EMS. By the way, I don't believe we could bill for EMS. My understanding is that the only insurance company that pays for EMS non-transport is Vermont Medicaid, and we cannot bill them because we do not have a national provider number. Not without that number, I believe we couldn't bill other insurance companies either, but that I'm not entirely sure about. In fact, there are no definitions, no determination of who, when, where to apply, except it says the insurance company shall be billed. It also states that in some circumstances, the responsible party itself may be billed. So who makes that determination and under what circumstances? Laws must be clear and not subject to interpretation or capricious application. It is hard to write a law that covers all circumstances and consequences, but it has to be attempted. And this, in fact, is a law. It is the law inside the border of Putney and has all the authority of a state law. But it is a law, as I said, and with no details, no clarity, and leaves everything vague and open to uneven application. If you look at the old ordinance, you will see that it is complete. I disagree with a lot of the provisions it has, but it has all the essentials of an ordinance. Purpose, definition, eligible occurrences and incidents, enforcement, invoicing, appeals. This ordinance has none of that. So a response to a couple issues that have been brought up. We need an ordinance in order to bill. We have an ordinance, and we need to look at, did it work or did it not work, and why didn't it? We don't need another ordinance to bill. We have one. We need to bill for accidents on 91, and we can do that under the old ordinance. Hazard situations were brought up. We can bill for hazard spills and incidents anywhere in the town under the state hazard mitigation policy. And there was a question, does insurance go up if it's used? Absolutely. Car insurance rates go up, and homeowners either goes up or is not renewed next time. I am sorry if I seem to be complaining, but I am really concerned about both the process of adopting this ordinance and the contents of the ordinance itself. Thank you for listening. I realize it probably will make no difference, but at the very least, the adoption date needs to be changed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we get a copy of that, Jeanette,
Sure.
please? For
Yes.
our records.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot.
I apologize for it being so long, but I really needed to say all those things because I think you have made a huge error.
Don't apologize. A copy would be great.
I will,
Thank you.
here, let me
Mr. Mayor.
just give it to Karen. I crossed off the first part about the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, do I have the floor? Thank you. First, I commend what the previous speaker has said, and we should be mindful of her admirable 20 years in the Vermont Senate, including a long tenure as the chairperson of the House Committee on Government Operations. I'm going to continue from perhaps a slightly different perspective I have timed myself at under 3 minutes. Mr. Chairman, regarding the mitigation rates ordinance that you and your colleagues adopted and enacted during your June 11, 2025 regular public meeting. Since then, I have had time to go beyond my June 18th commentary in the Commons, advocating that 5% of Putney voters petition during 30 days from right now a special town meeting as a permissive referendum approving or disapproving this ordinance. During fiscal 2025-2026, Town of Putney taxpayers will pay just $48,000 to provide actual fire services as just 1.4% of our $3.5 million budget. You are about to receive what Attorney Proctor will recognize as a legal argument that I now summarize. What does this ordinance actually say? The Vermont Supreme Court is our guide. I quote, "When interpreting a statute, our primary goal is to give effect to the legislative intent, and to do so, we first look at the plain meaning of the statute. We examine the language of the statute because we presume that the legislature intended the plain, ordinary meaning of the statutory language." Unquote. The plain, ordinary meaning of this ordinance's comprehensive 33-word title is that everyone will be charged mitigation rates for deployment of all Putney Fire Department services because no exceptions are stated. The plain, ordinary meaning of this title also is that mutual aid is included as services provided, rendered by, for the Putney Fire Department. The plain, ordinary meaning of Section 2 is that a claim shall be filed to the responsible parties through their insurance carrier is mandatory. This ordinance is law to which the legal definition of shall applies. Shall is an imperative command, usually indicating that certain actions are mandatory and not permissive. This contrasts with the word may, which is generally used to indicate a permissive provision, ordinarily implying some degree of discretion. The plain, ordinary meaning of Section 2 also is that some official will decide what some circumstances are, which is both arbitrary and too vague to be legally valid. In Dillon's Rule, Vermont, it appears that the town of Putney has no powers to charge mitigation rates. Statute law applicable to municipal and county government, to taxation and finance, and to internal security and public safety does not mention mitigation rates. Only optional reimbursement to a municipality for its cost of having provided mutual aid is authorized. That's 20 VSA Section 2963. I have copies here for you all that I will hand to our town manager, and thank you. I also have additional copies should anyone here wish one.
Get up.
Is that all, Mr. Chairman? We got more.
No, I'm sorry. I said thank you, which I
Okay.
have to say I'm done here, but you know, I guess I didn't speak up.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for checking.
All right, moving on. Approval of the minutes, June 11th, 2025.
I make
No
a
more comments, right?
motion. I make a motion to approve the minutes of June 11th, 2025.
Second.
I was wrong.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Warrants to the treasurer.
I make a motion to approve and execute the warrants to the treasurer upon completion of review.
Second.
Second.
Karen?
Payroll warrant dated June 27th, 2025, in the amount of $28,941.24. There is some overtime in there from the water line breaks.
Can you say the
One.
number again?
$28,941.24.
I thought you said 20,000, and that's not what you said. Thank you.
941.24.
Carry on.
So there's overtime for highway department for the old depot water line break. And you have the rec league director in here. What else? A little bit higher than normal, but what did I? Yeah, there was like 30 hours of overtime in the highway. And there's 4 for double time on a holiday where we had that winter storm come through. So Thursday was
Oh,
a
yeah.
holiday, Juneteenth.
The big Wendy's, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so.
Looks good to me.
Moving on. Accounts payable dated June 14th through June 27th, 2025 in the amount of $143,146.27. There are a couple of prepayments here for actual invoices that will be for July 1st fiscal year. That'll all get readjusted at the end of the fiscal year, once we start working with our auditor. We did pay VABS, VABS LLC. That is for the sand material that we take from the carpenter pit. So we ended up with almost 4,000 yards at 3.33 cents a yard. Windham County assessment for half year. The pool doors are in, so the other half of the payment is in this accounts payable, $11,763.50. I will be requesting a grant reimbursement for that amount. The doors look good. They'll last 15 years, hopefully. The pool will last that long. So. And passive for $24,111.50 is our quarterly insurance payment.
The sewer main repair, that was over the interstate or by the interstate?
Oh, yes, so Bill Harlow and Sons Excavating, there
Oh,
was
that
the,
one.
yep, the septic break on Putney Landing Road, and then the water main break on Old Depot.
Fun times.
Fun times last week, sure were. Said no one.
And the Twin State, that was just repairs for all the trucks.
Correct, Twin
Service.
State Truck Service, $4,006.79. There will be some more maintenance. I know the tanker is being looked at right now, but it's needed, and I'm thankful that we're looking at all of this and taking care of it.
Questions?
Good.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Town manager's report.
Quickly, the personnel policy, Kim Monroe and I have been working with HR Acquired. We have gone through the draft at this point. It's less pages, which is great. It was a good process. Kim and I were both involved each week. And once we get the final draft, I'd like to have the select board take a look at it, and we can talk about, I want a second review by an appointed attorney, and I will reach out to the LCT and have them recommend someone. This process that Kim and I just completed was $3,000. I expect that an attorney will be at least that. I mean, it's pretty comprehensive and we've like cleaned it up quite a bit. And there's only a few questionable areas, but I'm not concerned. But it does need attorney review. So, I'll keep you posted on that. It's not an ordinance, people, it's just a policy. The pool is open. It opened on Monday.
Yay.
It looks great. It looks really good. So, and it's holding water, which is great. I'm like so happy about it. So I just wanted to make that announcement.
Week to have it.
Yes.
Time.
Swim lessons start next week, and all the slots are pretty much full at the moment. So there's a rolling basis, so if people might want to send their kids to swim lessons, you got to reach out to Katie Iman, and she'll get you registered. But anyway, yeah, I don't have anything to do with registration, but thank you, Katie, for handling all that. It's a lot of work. I just want to announce too that I am on vacation starting tomorrow. I will be back in the office on Tuesday. I am not checking messages.
We're gonna hold you for that.
Yeah.
Get an email from
I
you.
see it.
On the agenda too is Ellis Holway and Old Depot water line. I felt the need to make a statement on what happened on June 16th, on Monday, because there is a lot of information, there's a lot of comments out in the public, and I just want to give the facts of what actually happened so that people have the other side of this event. I did create an incident report. It will be ongoing as I gather more data and information. But on June 16th, approximately 3 p.m.-ish, a contractor hit an unidentified 4-inch water line on Ellis Holloway Drive. And subsequently, a second water line was compromised, caused by a surge in the pressurized line. Now, the line that was hit on Ellis Holloway was not on any town municipal water system as built. Okay, they did their due diligence, they were doing test pits, and they were not seeing anything in the ground at that location. And they were excavating to put in a catch basin, okay? So it happened. What happened next was that Simon Operations Services, our operator for our wastewater treatment plant and our water system, went to the valve box at Carroll Brown and tried to turn it off. That valve box was obstructed, and he could not get to the fitting to turn it off. The operator went over towards Rod's Mobile, where there's another valve box. He was successful in isolating and turning off the water to the break that was on Ellis Holloway. Now, water lines are pressurized. There's a force in there. So you have to be careful how to turn it off. Slowly is preferable. A surge was created. There was a rusted saddle on the water line at Old Depot Road. That disconnected and created that second leak. That leak was observed about 3:45 p.m. The operator went down to the intersection of Route 5 and Christian Square, went to the valve box, shut the water off. At that point, everyone south, including Putney Commons, down to Dummerston had no water. A boil water order was issued. It went out to social media, to radio stations, hand-delivered and emailed to the appropriate people that were affected. So Monday, we had a boil water order. Tuesday, the boil water continued. The system was disinfected. It needs time to get through the system. By Friday, we thought we were gonna have results from the lab either Thursday or Friday. That did not happen. So Saturday morning is when we get the final results that the water samples have passed. And the water operator also takes like 4 samples from different areas on the system. So that is the gist. And there is more detail, but I'm just not gonna elaborate on that until I have a full, complete report for the select board. I do have pictures in my report. I am collecting expenses so we can see what this break will cost. The other thing too, just so folks know, that system is a user fee based system. So what that means is the users pay for the service. So what happened down there is it affects the users, but in no way at this point can I say that it affects the taxpayers. So, and I know some of the users are taxpayers, but I don't want people to jump to conclusions here. Until I have all the facts, I'll proceed with the select board and obviously the operator of our water system. But I want to thank folks for being on the scene. The Putney Highway Department, emergency services were there to help with traffic. And I do know that some of them were assisting the highway department with the work. So once the break was contained at Old Depot, and just so people know, that was a connection for a future. That saddle broke because of the connection. It didn't go to the house, so they were not on town water. So it was there for future connection. So a lot of lessons here. I think there's some planning that needs to take place, because if that saddle was rusted and it just disconnected, I don't know how many other ones are like that. We have an aging system, and it happened. So once Old Depot was fixed, they turned the water back on. Basin was already at the site of the original break because they hadn't air tested yet. And once they did that, water was back on to everyone. And because of state law, when you have a water break, you have to have a boil water order, and your samples have to pass. So, I think that's enough. It's a lot. I learned a lot, but I'm going to be working with emergency services and the emergency management director, Len Howard, and with the operator so.
I just wanna say thanks to the highway crew and everyone for, working on it, and to get it up as fast as you did. It's unfortunate that the lab results took longer than they should have, but better clean water than
Yeah.
not clean water, not knowing.
The other thing I want to acknowledge is that, and I'm going to call him in, Putney Co-op suffered quite a bit.
Yeah, they did.
You know, their deli was closed all week. So that was a big hit for them. And I'm having conversations with Ed Powers, and I will follow through with him. Because again, a report like this gives us the data, and then we just need to like be proactive. And you know, the water line was unidentified. The valve box was obstructed. You know, the surge happened. So it's, you know, if anybody wants to point a finger, you can point it at me, because, you know, I mean, it's not about the project, it's not about a contractor, you know, it happened.
Could happen to anybody.
Right.
What was obstructing the valve, just out of curiosity? What's
So
that about?
So it's down a pit, I guess, so the ground could have shifted,
Yeah.
you know, and dirt or rock might have fell, so there's a big like square nut or bolt, I don't know what to call it. And it was covering that square nut that Joe couldn't get the tool on to like turn it off. So again, it's maintenance, and I'm looking at the contracts too to see who's responsible. It is town municipal system, folks, so, you know.
Yeah.
Well, it's so funny to talk about it, this aging system. It seems like it seems like we just put that water system in. It doesn't seem like that long ago.
Well, 2005.
I forget
yeah.
how long it's been.
But here's the other thing. So Putney Meadows was built in 1991, right? So for that water pipe to be there and not be on an as-built that we have, I can't explain it. It's a mystery right now. But so I just want to be clear, those were the events. And somebody else may have a different version, but
Karen,
yes,
I am,
all kinds of questions.
Any other select board comments? Public comment?
yeah, I live in Putney Meadows, and the notices that we got were in very small print, and people started asking about, well, what does a boil order really mean? Boil water order. So I went online and made up a document about the do's and don'ts in large print, and very clear, and posted it, and I'm gonna suggest that maybe that goes onto the Putney website somehow.
Can you share it with me,
I said,
Connie?
yes, I'd love to do that,
Because education is key,
yeah.
and if I don't have to reinvent it, or my staff reinvent it,
Yeah.
I will use it. And this is part of this whole, we never had an incident report before. The last water line break we had was in 2020. So,
Okay, I had never lived under a boil water order myself, so I got educated, so I'll be happy to pass that along.
okay.
Marcella?
Thank you. First, I just want to thank you for handling an emergency. We've had a lot of them recently, it seems like. And also just to be able to collect the expenses and everything of that. I just want to acknowledge that as someone who has been working with different residents around development, as a community, it feels really important to recognize that when development happens, we discover things that we don't know, and it can be problematic. But from my standpoint, it would be really good to know that if somebody is paying for town water and sewer, for example, if they're doing development and something like this happens, what is the remedy? So is that something the town pays for? Is that something that because that's one of the sort of contentious things that's coming up in some of the dialogue is, okay, we have a breakdown, who pays for it? And it's something that literally with any development could come up again with the work that we're doing with the task force. So
Yeah.
having clarity around that, I think, would be super helpful to make sure that there's, like crystal clear, equitable guidelines around that.
We will be updating the ordinance and the policies for sewer and water at some point. I want to say in the next year, but might be a little bit longer.
Mr. Fairman?
Mr. Chairman, 4 brief points. First, no one should point any finger at our town manager, who has excellently managed this unforeseen situation. Second, I want to thank apparently Putney officials. One came to Putney Landing, and I guess they went elsewhere as well, delivering bottled water.
Correct.
And that certainly was a very nice gesture. Third, I like to go out, during the long summer evenings, I like to go out walking around Sunset. So when I came back, I sat on the bench in front of the clinic and was a sidewalk superintendent for the work going on there. And you saw me, I saw you. And I want to praise the crew who worked so hard and so well fixing at Alice Holway Drive and then fixing Old Depot Road at Route 5. Mindful that it was a nice summer evening, but they would have been there in any weather, in any season. These are good and tough people we have working for us, and we should be grateful. Finally, Mr. Chairman, Alice Holway Drive, you authorized it to be closed. Now, at present, it is closed during working hours of weekdays and is otherwise open. And I understand why, to mitigate heavier traffic on Old Route 5 stroke Johnson's Curve Road in Dummerton. Problem is that Rearc and Bazin Brothers are storing construction materials and heavy equipment in the highway right-of-way. Now, at the Putney, because I'm a Windham and Windsor Housing Trust resident, I was at the annual meeting, and I told the person responsible for development there that really they're not allowed to store stuff in the right-of-way of a road that has not been closed. And stuff there included various pieces of precast concrete that I would easily estimate at 1,000 to 2,000 pounds. There was also an 81,000-pound excavator, and right next to it there was trench shoring that I would estimate at 7 or 8 tons. In other words, this is in the highway right of way. If you're driving your car through there and anything happens and you hit any of that stuff, it's game over for you, no question. So I'm suggesting that because the state law actually says they're not allowed to do this, that they be told, you have a construction yard, keep your stuff in the construction yard except when you're using it or maybe when you're unloading it. State law says, incidental occupancy is allowed, but you can't leave the stuff there for days, which is what was happening. Now, the alternative, of course, is to close Alice Holway Drive for the duration. But then, of course, the traffic winds up on Old Route 5 and Johnson's Curve Road. So it's one of these situations where you push it here and it pops out there. But my concern always is public safety, and I always say or do something instead of wishing that I had. So now I have. We need to do something there. It may be that we just tell them, and maybe they've already been admonished by Windham and Windsor Housing Trust, don't keep your stuff on the street. I did not check today because I didn't have time in the hot weather and everything. But I would suggest that we keep an eye on that and do one or the other. Either they get the stuff out of there or we close the road for the duration. Because it just is untenable. Thank you.
Thank you. You can have that conversation. Look into it. You can.
Yeah, when I get back. Nothing's gonna happen until I get back.
Okay.
Any other public comment? Mike?
I just want to quickly mention in regards to infrastructure like this, the legislature did pass something, the CHIP program, which is going to make monies available for maintenance or upgrades of infrastructure that can help towns build for businesses or housing. So it's something we can talk with Karen, but it might be a good option when we look at things like this, especially if we have aging pipes.
So can you just explain, what is the acronym CHIP?
I can't right now, but it's related to the TIF program, which is the tax.
It's community
Tax incremental financing.
Right, so it's a way to finance these projects, leveraging other funding that's out there already, so.
Stacking.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can get you more information, but I don't have the details right off the top of my head, but I think it can help.
Sorry to put you on the spot, Mike.
I've got Jeanette here, so she can help.
All right, moving on. Boards, committees, and commissions. Wilson, oh,
I have a question, just completely different topic related to the town manager's report. I'm just wondering if you could, I haven't been here for a month, any updates on how the fire department, fire and rescue or emergency services or whatever we're going to ultimately call it, just any updates?
Are you adding something to the agenda that's not on there?
Well, no, I mean, I think it's a reasonable thing to ask the town manager, any updates?
Yeah, well, they're busy. So I did go on ESO and I tried to, I did. I was able to pull information, off a report. So it was about 450 calls for the year, which is lower than what's been, reported over the last few years. But that's just a number. It's just
is that
it's not confirmed. It's out of ESO.
calendar year or fiscal year?
Fiscal year.
Then I must have missed it.
Yeah, no, I wanted to do fiscal because I needed to line it up with the budget. So they're doing trainings. I can't tell you a whole lot, Peg, because the last time I met with the officers and I gave them some, the capital plan to go through, and I'm looking for an organizational chart, how the department's laying out right now. And I do plan to be at their next officers meeting, because I have some more asks for them. So, and it's just, conversations. I'm working with Len Howard, as you know, with the local emergency management plan that we just adopted. But I want to get deeper in with him about cooling centers because of this heat wave. And just to let people know, Landmark College has reached out to my office twice now. One for cooling stations, because they have the facilities, and for water, for people to be able to use their facilities to shower and to actually get water. And I realize some people don't drive, but a big shout out to Landmark College for offering your facility and bringing us in like this. I thought that was very gracious of them to do. So we'll be having discussions with schools about emergency plans. And the septic breakdown on Putney Landing, the state is looking to have an updated operations management, hold on a minute, emergency response plan. That was the acronym. So I need to get something to the state by July 15th, but that's something that needs to be incorporated into the emergency plans. So there's going to be more work. I will try to get somebody to get us a report on an updated report, because it's been a while.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Peg.
Everybody else set now?
All set.
Yeah. Moving on, Wilson Wetlands Stewardship Committee.
That's me. Hi, my
Jane.
name is Jane Collier, and the Wilson Wetlands Stewardship Committee is a subcommittee of the Putney Conservation Commission, and we just wanted to give a quick report on our activities. Our ongoing activities are clearing the culverts on Sand Hill Road. There are 5 culverts on Sand Hill Road, and Wilson Wetland committee members have regularly monitored and cleared these culverts of debris, including materials deposited by the beavers. And committee members have been monitoring and maintaining these culverts for 13 years. And a special shout out to Robin and Mary Quinn, who slung a lot of mud down there. The committee also yearly puts up the turtle crossing signs, and we put them up in the spring, take them down in the fall. We have been maintaining the parking area in terms of weed whacking around the edge of the parking area and around the kiosk. And we also monitor for any trash and dumping, which we kind of take care of unless it's a hazardous, material. We are ongoing invasive species mitigation. We conduct removal activities of invasive species, and we do that as we solicit guidance from subject matter experts around the area. Special activities that we've done, as most of you know, we applied for and executed the grant from the Vermont Flood Resilient Communities Fund. During that process, it's about a 2-year process, 2.5. We engaged community members through outreach and educational activities, and that grant was completed at the end of last year. More recently, we conducted a bird and nature walk, which was a public outing along Sand Hill Road. It was a casual meetup with members of the Wetland Committee and other community members there to act as guides. People with experience in wetlands, plant, reptiles, and birds were there to chat with the public. And we hope to offer more of those events in the future. We monitored and coordinated 2 beaver rescues at the town dam. This was actually a couple years ago, and we engaged beaver experts and members of the community. It was a big group effort in monitoring those beavers and helping them get back on the other side of the dam. And we did a fun project. Todd Dowling, who's a new member on the committee, works at Putney School, and he engaged a student to do a drone project to photograph the wetland, and I'll read his statement on the project. In collaboration with Putney School student Max, class of 25, aerial footage was gathered primarily on the east side of Sand Hill Road to better understand the current state of the wetland and document for future comparison. This was especially helpful this year because of new beaver dam locations. And the Wetland Committee is wondering if the town has any place where this video document can be stored. And maybe Karen, you could get back to me on that at some point.
Yeah.
Our future activities, we're going to continue with invasive species mitigation, targeting some specific species. We're looking to recruit additional committee members. Currently there's 4, and we have openings for more. We want to engage the community, continue to do that with nature and bird walks, volunteer involvement with stewardship activities, and educational programs like speakers and presentations. And finally, a statement from the Wetland Committee. Given that the Wilson Wetland Stewardship Committee members have a wealth of knowledge about wetland ecology, we would welcome an invitation to consult and partner with the town over any proposed improvements to Sand Hill Road and potential impacts to the wetland.
You mentioned that you remove waste when you find it on your own, unless it's hazardous.
Yeah.
Do you find a lot of hazardous waste out here?
By hazardous, I would mean like kind of nasty things, oily things, like diapers, something like that. If it's sticks or a piece of plastic or something like that. We try to keep it looking clean, for people, but we're not, experts in that area. We don't, if we take something with us, we have to then find a place to get rid of it. So.
Oh, I was just going to add, before Jane's time, there was a group, somebody dumped things over, if you went up to the baseball diamond, now owned by the town, the rec field, people would drive in and just throw things over down the steep hill, which is in fact Wilson Wetland, fairly close to the town well. We did check things that look like they might contain oil or any kind, something like that. This is back in the day when Cole Prudhomme was still with us and, you know, working on the committee, and it was just filled with water at that point. We have no idea what it originally was, but it didn't need to be removed. I think we did remove a couple things like batteries, but that's the only incident we've had, and it was quite a while ago.
Thank you.
So the big community project engagement and looking at different options where, so where where does that stand at this point? Just that report? You gave it to
I
us
think we're supposed to make a
and we have
decision
it
on what we're gonna
now.
do on it.
This
Yeah.
one here?
Yes, that's what I was trying to be reminded of.
The grant culminated in this beautiful report, and the committee made a final presentation to the select board, and then we passed it off to the town.
It's on your
Yes, that's what I suspected.
action.
But we were really heavily involved with all the work, and a lot of us have wetland and wildlife expertise outside of this endeavor. So, just wanted to put that out there that we're available if you have questions about any of the report or anything else.
I have one question, one comment. So Jane, I know I asked you this question in an email. Do we know if there is any money to do any of this work recommended in the report?
I did some research on that and spoke with folks about funding, and the simple answer is maybe, with the you know, how grants and money is being made available, it's really hard to say.
Okay.
But there are some resources if you want to, you know, check a little further. We can at least ask the question, but I don't know what the prospects are. And up until the past year, there was a lot of money available, so
Through
I don't know
FEMA.
where it stands.
Yes. Yes, so this funding is through FEMA. My comment too I wanted to make is that we do have a grant to do some engineering on the Sand Hill Bridge. It is scouring. So I want to move ahead with that and do a request for proposal to see what it might cost. And then maybe we can find some money, Michael Mariki, to do, so the Sand Hill Bridge. Yeah. So I first have to get an engineer to look at it and get a cost estimate. But that is the next step.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee, Swift.
Hi, I'm Swift Everty. I am the, I guess, chair. I don't have a co anymore, but of the Equity Inclusion Advisory Committee. We had brought this to you, this 3-point recommendations in response to the raids that have been going on with immigrant communities, and you bounced some past stuff back to us. We are bringing it back. So I can start at the first one. The first recommendation was for the select board to request the Windham County Sheriff's Office to release a public statement verifying the department is in agreement in both spirit and practice with the current model of fair and impartial policing standards as it pertains to immigrant status, immigration and customs enforcement, and custom and borders patrol. And I was just wanting to know where that ended up, because I wasn't at the last meeting, Han was, and they said that one was a go. So has the select board reached out to the sheriff's office to ask to request that
I'm
statement.
supposed to do that, right?
Yeah,
Thank you. When you get back.
Yes. It might be on their website, Swift. Have you checked?
I haven't, you did send it to them?
No.
Okay, they may have made their own statement.
Yes.
Great,
Yes.
I'll double check, thanks.
Okay.
Okay, the second one, you wanted more specific language, which I just minimally edited this. So the second one is recommending the select board endorse the following updated statement. The town of Putney calls on the General Assembly of Vermont to demand the federal government address our immigration system such that there is clear, fair, legal, and affordable path to citizenship. I think we had said like Congress or something much more broad. That was number 2. I can pause there. Most of our discussion I think will be in the third one.
yeah, so I'm happy to do that. I do want to note that the General Assembly of Vermont has now adjourned for the year, so
When they get back.
when they get back. So I guess I can make a motion. I move that the town of Putney calls on the General Assembly of Vermont to demand the federal government address our immigration system such that there is a clear, fair, legal, and affordable path to citizenship.
Comments from the board? Any public comments on that? So,
Sue Copley, I thank you for that very much. I wonder, and perhaps Mike Murphy can help us with this, if we can't just provide that communication as soon as possible, is there a way to do that? Because I think other communities may have concern like that, and it is an urgent concern over the next few months. And I don't know that, but I would just encourage some way to communicate that in the most timely way, even if they're not in session right now, because I think we'll be feeling the effect of this concern too soon.
Mike, is there a good official channel that we should direct this to? Or can we just ask you, is that good enough?
I can do that, but I would also ask, or suggest you might want to amend this, to send this to the governor as well, because he doesn't have to
He's full-time.
go through the channels the legislature does. He could put a proclamation out and suggest some policy that I think a lot of people want to hear, and it is a concern, especially as people are getting snatched off the street.
Okay, got an amendment? Do you want me to reread it? So I amend it to read the General Assembly of Vermont and the Governor of Vermont.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. But there's small actions in a small room that who knows what impact they'll have, but thank you. And the last piece is, you had asked us for specific language on recommendations on how to interact with lights if they were to come into the town hall or working with employees while they were on duty. So I found 2 versions of this. One of them is very specific that Connecticut enacted that is, I think, much more like a policy. And then the second version is much more casual, and it's from Wisconsin. It came from the governor's office, and it was done as a memo. So they share actually very similar information of step-by-step instructions, what your obligations are not, what you should, what you shouldn't do. I felt like I wanted to give you both of these because they're pretty different just in how they're presented. And I could either hand this to y'all and someone could volunteer to pick one and edit it, because there's a few probably minor phrasing things that need to change in here. But I think it's up to y'all if you want to do it as a formal policy with a purpose and a scope and the principles and then the guidance, or if we want to do it as a memo, which is a little more approachable in its language. Yeah, I think they're too long to read. I could read them. I could read the memo. Do you want me to read the second one, just so the public can get a gist of it?
Yeah. I
Okay,
think that would
so
be
this is the memo, and then just for you to know that the more policy-based one is just much more specific. So instructions for town employees, officials, volunteers encountering ICE or other federal agents while on town property or while performing town duties. Step 1, stay calm and don't rush. Notify your supervisor immediately. You have the right to record or document the visit. 2, ask the agent, A, for their name and to see their government-issued badge. Also verify the agent's stated identity and agency against the information on their badge. B, why they are at your workplace. C, to see any documents supporting their reason for being there. If they reference a judicial or administrative warrant, ask for a copy of the document to retain while you consult with your attorney. And D, to have a seat in a public area, ideally in a space that's separate from the rest of the work environment, such as an enclosed waiting room or in their vehicle. Then, number 3, I put the town manager in here. Maybe we say a designated person, or call the town manager and have them speak directly with an attorney. So whoever it is contacting an attorney, the town attorney's office. This applies regardless of whether or not the agent has presented a judicial or administrative warrant. B, if you do not reach an attorney, ask the agent to come back at another time after you have been able to consult with your attorney. Number 4, do not do any of the following. Do not answer questions, including when the agent asks about someone you know or presents a warrant with an individual name. B, do not give the agent access to any paper files or computer systems without speaking to the town attorney, including when the agent presents a warrant. C, do not give your consent for the agent to enter a non-public area. 2 parts of that. The agent must have a judicial warrant to enter a public area. The town attorney will advise you on what areas are covered by any warrant. And examples of public areas include reception, waiting areas, lobbies, restrooms available to the public, and other common areas accessible by members of the public without screening or escort. For example, this space, I guess when the town hall is open, is public, but behind these doors is private. And number 5, remember that every town employee, official, and volunteer has a duty to protect confidential data and information collected or maintained by the town of Putney in town offices and electronic filing systems. Because of this, town representatives may not grant ICE or another agent access to any such data or information absent authorization from their legal counsel pursuant to a valid judicial warrant. That's a short one. The thing that I think is missing in there is definitely there's a little legalese that's helpful. Specifically, there is Act 28, which was passed by the General Assembly, which does restrict how town offices and enforcement officers, everyone basically, is mandated or is not, actually not mandated, to cooperate with ICE and Border Patrol. That Vermont actually passed something that you don't actually have to cooperate.
Laura?
Hi, thanks. I hate to muddy the waters, but I want to jump back to what you've just passed. If we're going to address the governor regarding immigration and citizenship, I would also hope that maybe you could amend that to add a sentence requesting that any federal officer, or any officer for that matter, needs to be unmasked and identified, because I think we're seeing a lot of this across the country, that it's becoming very difficult to tell whether or not people actually have the authority to do some of the things that they're doing, these raids that we're seeing, and people being picked up. They're being picked up by people that aren't identified. And so I think what you're talking about right now could become very difficult if you can't even identify who you're talking to. I'm sorry to muddy the waters, and you can say no.
I feel like they're 2 separate items.
She was asking us to go back to the.
I know, but the one that we passed just now has broader implications than what to do if ICE shows up at your door, or somebody claiming to be ICE, which I think is what we're addressing now. And you could certainly add, clear identification, which I think is in here. already. As far as whether we want a memo or a policy, I feel like, because as you all know, it takes us about 3 years to write a policy. I think the policy is a good idea. I think the memo could be the interim.
It could be a memo that's written like a policy.
It could be, okay. I'm thinking that if we wanted to do something like right away, because this is happening right now, that we go ahead and ask Karen to issue this as a memo to employees while we work on the policy.
Jeanette?
So, thank you. I've been doing a lot of research on this because I'm writing the policies for the employees and residents where I work. And one of the things is that immigration law is kind of like our education financing system in Vermont. It's so complicated that hardly anybody really understands it. And just a couple things. I think that if you want some really clear information, and this is not so much about employees, but it does touch on that. Our Attorney General has just put out, and it's on their website, I think it's about a
Know your rights.
Know Your Rights, it's called. It's on the Attorney General's. It is really, really good. And it's clear, and it doesn't use language that anybody would not understand. So I would suggest that. And there are a couple of things that it's very complicated, like they are not required to carry identification. I mean, you can ask them for it. You can ask them what their name is and who they represent. But according to the ICE, it's very complicated, but they're not required to carry identification. So there's a problem there if you ask for it. And I do have a question for Swift. Did you say that they have to have a judicial warrant to enter a public space? That's not true.
No.
Oh, I thought you said they need to have
a non-public space. I think
non-public. They can enter a non-public space with a certain type of administrative warrant.
Right.
But yeah. But anyway, I would suggest looking at that. What she wrote there. It's really, really good. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, as usual, I'm considering the words to be theory, and I'm considering real life to be practice. Now, what we are actually talking about here, and by the way, I commend the work that the DEI committee has done. I'm in no way being critical or opposing anything they are proposing, but I'm saying, consider this. Some town employee, all of a sudden, is facing a group of very large, very aggressive, masked and armed men, okay, who know exactly what they're allowed to do, and also know about how far they can attempt to go beyond what they're allowed to do. Now that is going to be the situation, which is a very scary situation for pretty much anyone except perhaps people who've been in the U.S. Armed Forces, Special Forces, or been members of SWAT teams, things like this, who've been on the other side of that equation. Now, this is municipal government. The ultimate administrative authority is the town manager. The ultimate political authority is the select board. I would suggest that you can make this quite simple, that anyone who is not the town manager, who is accosted by these people, simply says, as is common in the corporate world, you need to talk to my boss.
She's out of town.
Now, our town manager, alas, this is yet another task for her, how can I put it, too full list of things to do, too full to-do list. At that level, someone like our town manager can be informed by experts what she needs to do, And not only that, have an expert whom she can call just like that. So she can say to the agents, you need to talk to our probably immigration attorney or something like that. Because for a frontline person, this is going to be terrifying. And the agents know that it is terrifying and they take full advantage of it. In other words, it's very much like being in military combat, where you're facing troops that are much better than you are. Okay, but if a frontline employee says, you have to talk to my boss, they can't say, well, we're going to talk to your boss. Because you're able to say, I'm sorry, I have no authority to do anything. I'm just a frontline employee here. You have to talk to my boss, don't get me fired. You know, this sort of thing. This is how it actually will happen in practice. And in some, the information that the committee chairperson has provided, I would take the liberty of suggesting is written from the point of view of activists who are acting on their own authority as citizens of the United States under the constitutions of the United States, and in our case, the state of Vermont, which we do have. But a town employee is not in that position. It is in an even stronger position because he or she is a lower level employee of a government. And as I say, we have a top administrator and we have top politicians. And this is really where the buck has to stop, it seems to me. And so I'll stop there and you've got the buck.
Thank you. Marcella?
Yeah, I just was curious because I haven't been involved in this, but do we already have something for the public? So if someone observes or ICE comes to any of the residents, because there has already been some things that have happened in neighboring communities, do people know who to call and what to do? And does the town know that so that there is a rapid response network has been formed? And it would be great to be able to have a way to connect people who may be vulnerable into that.
Can I address very quick? No, there isn't anything in Putney specifically to help for the public.
Okay, I have information to share.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, I realize I omitted one final point, and that is, if you challenge an ICE agent, you're going to get arrested. That's what they're doing. Challenge them, they arrest you. Okay, then you're in a whole different situation where you're probably going to need to retain an attorney, unless some organization has pro bonos who will do it for you. You're all of a sudden in very deep water. On the other hand, a town manager knows exactly what authority she has and can say, I am the town manager, and I know you can do this, and I know I don't have to let you do that. And at that level, see, what they trade on is people having no idea what they're involved in and what they can possibly do. So they make the mistake of pushing it too far, and the agents, of course, will land on them for that. While if we simply can refer it up to someone who really knows what's going on, this person is not going to get arrested because this person knows exactly what and can tell them exactly what, and they know they're talking to someone who knows what, and that solves the problem right there.
Here.
So I just want to say thank you for the memo because we can work within this, these steps. The other thing too is for public education, Marcella, we will look at Know Your Rights, because if it's as simple as putting that on our town website under the community page, that's what we're going to do. We won't be doing a robocall to anybody because we just don't have the staffing to do that kind of work.
There's already people that have organized that, and so if you have the information, then people who want to be informed, if, for example, there is ICE showing up somewhere, because basically the unconfirmed accounts that have happened have been where if you don't know how to make sure that you don't let them in, once you let them in, it goes downhill from there. And so, anyway, people are mobilized, and I just feel it's important that Putney has that information as well, so that if somebody calls and says, hey, this is what just happened to my neighbor or something, there's at least a way to.
Okay, so please step back just a little bit. So we will put, education on our website. I think because of social media and the platforms out there, it's a lot quicker if something happens to your neighbor that the community is relaying that message. Because chances are, nobody's gonna be in town hall to do that.
I mean, this pertains to ICE showing up at a town property.
Right.
So, we should definitely put information out there for the public as well, but this is really more pertains to if you're a town employee and what do you do?
Right.
So.
And Howard's right, they should be coming to me.
Yeah, it says that.
Yeah.
It just also gives a little bit more I'm likening this, it's much less scary, but I'm likening this to First Amendment audits.
Right.
Because they come in and they know
have them
exactly.
here.
They know exactly what they can and cannot do.
Yeah.
And if you do the wrong thing, you end up on YouTube.
Right.
But it is very intimidating to have somebody with a camera in your face and saying, whatever they say. So there's been guidance in the past on those, on how town employees should act when somebody exercises their First Amendment right. And so I feel like this is sort of in that vein. It's more, just be informed on how you should act, not necessarily take it upon yourself to escort them out the door. So I think that this particular piece this seems well baked enough that we could send that out to people while we work on something bigger.
Laura?
Thanks. If I may be remembering incorrectly, but there are two versions, and I think one of those versions at least, maybe both, says very clearly that people should not interfere with the actions of a federal officer. They should not stand in the way, get in the way. This is just what's expected from them, and I agree with Eileen. It's a pretty standard protocol to the one for reporting in the public spaces. In addition to that, there is a very active group called Migrant Justice that has been within the state for many years, and they do have contact numbers for if there is an emergency, if somebody is being actively accosted. So I would suggest posting those. There's two, one for in an emergency and one for just we think we see them and we don't know what's happening. And then I would add to be careful in the assumption that just because our town manager, who's very competent and does know what she's doing, knows her rights and knows what she's doing, that she will not be arrested, because they arrested a city comptroller and they've arrested a senator. So I don't know that position will secure you in these circumstances, but it's good to have information.
Thank you, Laura.
We'll come visit you.
We'll come visit you.
Just bail me out.
Bail
me out.
I'll hold your bail.
Mike?
Thank you. I wanted to amplify what Jeanette shared about the Attorney General's guide, which is online, and the piece about migrant justice, but there's also two other groups to know about now. The Vermont Asylum Assistance Project is putting together a cadre of lawyers who can help. And then there's also the Vermont, something that just started after Mohsen Madawi was taken, that he helped arrange the start of the Vermont Immigrant Legal Defense Fund. And the important thing here is to have access to lawyers, and that's what happened with Mohsen. He actually had a lawyer with him when he was taken because they were anticipating this would happen. And the faster you get a lawyer involved, the more, first of all, you can stay in Vermont and start the process of being released. So those two things are something to add, and I can share that information. And I think some of this information is also on the WeCan website online, from Windham County Action Network.
It's also on your rights.
Right, Mr. Fairway.
Mr. Chairman, on the highway, we know we're safe from encountering an ice checkpoint because we're more than 100 miles from the Canadian border. Wrong. We are less than 100 miles from the Atlantic Ocean. I've seen a map which does cover the Connecticut River Valley, where it's either from Canada or from the Atlantic Ocean that they can run checkpoints. Go a little farther south, and it's less than 100 miles from Long Island Sound. So we're not in any way safe from these checkpoints, and that's a situation where we have to stop and we have to conform to what they want to know, once again, or we get arrested. And trying to avoid it will get us arrested as well. I happen to read, I think this was in the New York Times. Thank you.
We just move on, or?
I think so. Does anybody want to take on the policy piece?
I can't.
Yeah, I can't either.
Like we come up with something, and you bring it back to us?
I can't hear you or see you.
Can you take what you wrote for the policy and work with Karen and format it and bring it back to us?
Yes.
That'd be great.
But in the meantime, we're going to post
Yes.
the Attorney General's
Yeah.
info, which, are you saying, Jeanette, that
Called Know Your Rights.
It's
the
called-
Know Your Rights also includes information about contact information for support and things like
It
that?
has, I believe it has Vermont migrant justice number on there, and I think it has the Vermont Asylum Project on there.
Great.
I think it has a bunch of stuff, and it is,
Resources,
it- and it has all of the information for, this is primarily for people who are approached, but it has all the information like, to know your rights, here's what your rights are. What if they come to my house? What if they approach me in a public place? What if they come to my car? What if I'm going across the border? It has all of that information in there.
Okay.
And it's really readable. I was stunned that something came out of a state office that is absolutely so understandable.
Okay, so what we're agreeing to do is to post that on our town website, and that Karen will use these guidelines as,
For a memo. Yeah.
yeah,
To
for employees.
Yes.
And
Yes,
then you guys will keep working on it,
Yeah.
policy, something more that's more policy.
I'll have Rachel on that first thing in the morning.
Okay.
On the website.
Just keep your hand up. Sean.
Yeah, two things, and I'm not sure if they go backwards or forwards. But one is there any way we can encourage, I don't know if it's adding to our General Assembly thing of like changing, having some sort of mandate that when ICE officers are in Vermont, they need to have their identification with them and be unmasked. I don't know if there's any way we can like have that. Once you cross the border in Vermont, I don't know if there's any piece of that. And the second one is there a way where we can help this action ripple into other towns? If it's sharing the memo that we're, I think we'd like an update of like, here's our minutes from our last meeting, is what we did around the ice raids that have been going on, or just somehow we can make this more than just this one small moment.
Are you part of the Vermont state,
Ideal?
Yeah.
We have been trying to get on Ideal for a year and a half, and no, we're not. Putney is not, is that what you mean?
Is that a Vermont
No, Vermont Leagues of
Leagues
Cities
of
and
Cities and Towns
Towns
has
is,
a diversity,
yes,
right? They have, don't they
Oh,
have
they have
diversity?
well,
They did.
they did.
They don't anymore?
Don't know.
I don't know, I have to
Well,
look.
you might check to see whether Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns has a diversity network, right?
I don't think
Yes.
so.
Diversity
They do.
committees, they used to,
They used to, yeah,
Yeah, they did used to.
yeah,
and that might be a way to
network,
network it out
yes.
from your point of view. We can also post it,
You could post it as a Facebook post, see if
Yeah.
other towns take it up.
And that is what happens. Towns,
You could write a letter to the editor and say,
Yes.
thanks so much to the select board for doing this thing.
thanks.
And we sometimes get letters from other people, from other towns.
Yeah,
You
Yes.
can get the names of all the select board members anywhere
Yeah.
and send them
Yeah.
emails.
Say, the
this
Putney
is what
Selectboard
Putney
did this.
Maybe you might consider doing this. So that's
Yeah.
nice.
Jeanette?
So if you want to make an even bigger splash, you could have a third thing here that goes to the governor and since this is, I didn't understand that this was a statewide policy, memo from in the state of Connecticut. So you could ask the governor if they would come up with a procedure for because the state employees are gonna be facing the exact same thing. So ask them and forward this to them and say, this is an example from Connecticut, and we encourage the state of Vermont to come up with a similar, not policy, but protocol. Yeah, protocol. Thank you.
Technically, it's Wisconsin that did the memo and Connecticut that did the policy, but yes.
Well, whichever
Yeah,
one did
yeah.
that, yeah, so send
It came from the governor's office in
Yeah.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, so
I'm
send it to
orange.
them and say, this is important and yeah. And they have, there is a refugee office in the governor's office. Tracy Dolan, you can send it to her and,
Alright,
okay, anyway.
Laura?
I was just going to say, if Swift follows up on that and you all do what you're doing, I'll write a letter to the editor thanking everybody for everything and making sure that it gets out there.
Thank you.
all right, sounds good.
Alright, moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of a sudden the temperature just went.
Yeah.
Putney Housing Solutions Task Force.
So you're doing housing advisory committee status first.
Oh, sorry.
yeah, you're jumping ahead.
Sorry. Mike.
Good try.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, thank you, and I'll try not to contribute too much to the addition of hot air. But appreciate the time here, appreciate your work. I know that you're straight out year round, and I hope you get the level of appreciation you do, but my guess is that might not happen. So I want to share that appreciation now. Same thing for Karen.
Thank you,
I get a chance to deal with various officials around the state, and one of the things we're seeing is it's harder to find town managers right now. It's harder to find listers and other pieces. And even Westminster had to go to Massachusetts to find a town manager now. So certainly want to appreciate what we have here. The Housing Advisory Committee has been, I would say, on energy saving mode. As the Camoan study has been ongoing. And our plan was to see that put out and then come back here and talk to you about what you'd like to see as deliverables in that. The other piece that I'd like you to consider, and I don't need an answer right now, I'm here to start a process. The other piece though, the charge of the committee was expanded last year to include home energy conservation. And my request for the board is to add that to the name of the committee. I think as we move forward, it would be helpful to bring more people onto that committee if it's more descriptive to what we actually do. And again, I don't need to suggest action right now, but I hope you can put that on your agenda. Maybe it's a simple thing. And as we move along with looking at the Camoan study, there's certainly a lot of good information there. And in the realm of home energy, I have started a process, and our next meeting is going to include a presentation from Brad Long of Efficiency Vermont. There's money out there for homeowners, and it's not just as it was in the past, where it was primarily lower income homeowners that could avail themselves of a way to save money on heating and cooling. So he's gonna give a presentation here. I hope we can record that and then have that. Because from my conversation with him, there's a lot of options out there for Vermonters and for Putney people to save some money, and alongside of that, maybe reduce our carbon footprint. So that's all I have right now. I anticipate as we move forward, we want to keep in contact and talk more about maybe establishing some deliverables based on the Camoan report and expanding that into home energy and conservation.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Mike, I have, well, a couple of comments. One is, I was concerned about the conduct of the May meeting, which
Can you
wasn't...
speak louder, or?
Come right on up. It wasn't warned as required by the open meeting law.
Right, it wasn't an official meeting.
Well, I was hoping you were going to have an official meeting.
Well,
It proceeded into a meeting, apparently,
Yeah.
which, without noting also the absence of a quorum of the committee. And then after I checked the website today, there's no minutes posted.
right, it was
So-
not an official meeting, as I was informed by the assistant clerk here, because we didn't post everything in time. We could meet but not take action, and it wouldn't be an official meeting.
I'm troubled that you proceeded without any of those things being noted. By all appearance, it seemed to be an official meeting. So I'm really concerned about the open meeting law implications of how the committee is functioning. I'd also say, in terms of deliverables, there's a list in this resolution. There's about 15 things in here that this board wanted to see the Housing Advisory Committee accomplish. I'd say, rather than us reiterating what's in here as deliverables, I'd really like to see the committee start to actually dig into the list that's already there.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board?
No, I think if we were to change the name of the committee, we'd have to readopt the resolution.
That's another meeting.
Yeah, not, yeah, I know. Do we want to do that, or does it matter?
Does it really matter? I mean,
I
is
mean,
that gonna change anything?
it's in the resolution, so,
It's one of the bullet points in the
Yeah.
resolution.
yeah, so I think recruiting new members would be a matter of telling them what the committee actually does,
Yep.
rather than changing the name of it.
Mr. Fairman?
Mr. Chairman, under the Vermont Open Meeting Law, there is no such thing as an unofficial meeting. When a quorum are present, that is an official meeting. If it has not been warned, it is an unwarned official meeting. There is, I repeat, no such thing as an unofficial meeting under the Vermont Open Meeting Law when a quorum are present, period. Thank you.
Karen?
I was just gonna make a comment. and ask, well, I'm gonna ask the select board if this resolution is current with, our goals from our town plan, and I guess I would defer to Sophocles, our
Yeah, these are taken from the current town plan.
And has anything changed with the Camoin housing needs assessment?
Basically, some of these things have been implemented. So for example, the town plan called for the housing needs assessment and action plan. And that action plan did provide an agenda of projects and things to address our housing needs, which we presented back in February with an implementation plan of how it might be done. And I brought that to your attention this month when in my report, it was the last page of that report. And the other thing that has changed since the resolution was the select board's support for VCRD to facilitate a discussion about housing strategy and how it can be implemented. And as I brought to your attention at the last meeting, there were several next steps that were recommended and generally agreed to out of that meeting, including select board members, housing advisory committee, the planning commission, the housing solutions task force. We were all there. And it's clear that there's a need for clear coordination and communication to work together to implement plans such as what was put on the table from the Camoin study, which is not to say that's the only thing that can be done, but we have it and we invested in it. So that's what's new, was the result of that VCRD discussion with recommendations for coordination, collaboration, clearly identifying who's doing what and how information would be shared. There is some priority setting it also calls for, and it calls again for all four groups, the select board, the advisory committee, the planning commission, and the housing solutions task force, to do that next piece of work that came out of the April 14th meeting. So that's what's new and different.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess we kind of anticipated this a little bit. I feel like this resolution still has all of that in there.
Yep.
In that it says that they shall also work with the planning commission, interested citizen groups, and task forces to educate the public on housing topics. So that's one of the charges. One of the other charges that I was hoping would help facilitate the citizen groups is since the Housing Advisory Committee is a government agency, it could be theoretically the pass-through for any government grants that would not be afforded to private interest groups. So that was another part of that charge. So the intent of this was to first peel off the energy piece from the defunct Energy Committee to get that ball rolling for the weatherization piece that was not being done, and to move forward and coordinate with other groups as a government pass-through for grants. So I still think that this is fine as written. I think what we perhaps need the Housing Advisory Committee to do is read the charge and come to the select board with how you might deliver these to us. And I also want to say that in the spirit of open meeting law, it is very important to be careful when you're meeting in an unwarned space. If it was me personally, I would have postponed the meeting and warned it properly. It is not a good look.
I just want to acknowledge that what we are saying in the resolution, there's no way that any committee can do all these things, right? You know, like that's just not going to happen. And I think we're torn a little bit between setting the priority ourselves and saying, this is what we want done, and also looking to the people on our committees to a certain extent to say, this is our passion, this is what we have energy to do, this is what we can bring forward. So I feel like we're kind of caught between those two places, and I would really like, I mean, we have a list of things here that we would like to see happen. I would love to hear from the committee about which of those things they are feeling called to do, you know, like what they're feeling enthusiastic enough to do that will motivate them as a volunteer group to get it done, you know. I don't want to be directive and say, you must do this, you must do that, because then, you know, it's hard to get people, it's not fun, and you can't get people to work with you that way. You know, we gotta go with where our people, you know, to a certain extent within the parameters of what we're looking to do, where is your passion, what do you want to do?
Your points are all well taken, and I appreciate that. And one of the reasons I'm here, I think, is to reestablish that relationship here. So there's a flow. The committee's been in effect for almost 20 years now, and there have been many select boards that we've worked with, and this is a new one again. So I'm here to reach out to get the wheels running and continue that relationship. So I appreciate that, what I'm hearing here. It's all helpful.
Laura?
Thanks. As a former member of the committee, what I heard Mike saying was that he thinks there would be more energy, not to be punny, but he thinks there would be more energy for the committee if energy was in the name of it. And I think he was coming to you with a strategy for how to improve this and better describe what's in that charge. Maybe I'm mistaken. And I also want to say, like, having been to a few of the meetings, education is happening. I don't know what the last meeting was, but if he invited a speaker and a speaker spoke, I can totally understand that happening.
I don't remember exactly what I was going to say. Oh, I know what I was going to, no. In the past, in some of our charges for committees, we've actually identified who should be on it. So, you know, in this case, I'm going to make something up, you know, somebody who is a weatherization expert, somebody who has expertise in grant writing, somebody who's lives in affordable housing. Make it very specific makeup of the committee so that we do get the people that are passionate about those things to align with what we want. So that's just a thought. How many people are on the committee right now? Mike?
5.
5?
There has to be 5.
There's 4 right now because Laura has stepped aside, and I think Pip is getting ready to. So,
okay.
And I think we can have more than that, but we'll see what we can do. I also want to recognize that in the past there have been other committees that didn't work in concert, and there was some conflict because they were working out what was perceived as outside their lane. And it's another reason I want to make sure we're talking.
I just realized we do have this in here. We have it saying with the majority being Putney residents and a goal of at least one citizen with nonprofit or for-profit housing development experience and at least one liaison to any citizen housing group or task force. So we do already have that in there.
There must be 5 members too at this point, otherwise.
We appointed.
Yeah, you appointed.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
I think it's Mike, Lisa, Aiden, and that's the committee.
Yeah, I'm not certain about Aiden. I need to check on his status.
He was on, I think it's off now. He
He's
was on
off.
Zoom. He was on Zoom earlier
Oh,
tonight,
was he?
but-
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
but
was.
he came off. I think he.
He's traveling today, so I think he might have been on route. Checked
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, it occurs to me, with committees of volunteers, why do we set a number and say there must be 5 on the committee, or I presume therefore the committee is not functional? Really, what saying 5 is, it establishes the quorum. Means the quorum is 3. Okay, but why would we say before volunteers, one of your members stepped aside, so your committee is in abeyance for now, and go find another member.
Have we done that in the past?
I hope not.
I don't think
The
so.
Conservation Commission would have been dead for years.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Planning commission. Planning commission.
I guess we should maybe put maybe the makeup of the committee on a future agenda.
We need a break, it's just a lot to go.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
5 minutes? 10 minutes? What do we need?
5 will turn into 10, so let's just.
Alright, we're gonna take a 5-minute break.
That's that water station. To run to the culvert and jump in the water.
Alright, we're back. Putney Housing Solution Task Force status report. Marcella?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a loud voice, so maybe I'll come over here like the other person did. Well, so I just want to say that our task force is really pleased to have this level of structure to be giving you a report. And that is something that came out of the work that we've been doing with Sue and the VCRD, Vermont Council of Rural Development. Again, I want to thank PAIG moved something a year ago about doing a trust building session of stakeholders that work on housing in Putney. And the task force followed through with that, brought folks together along with other representatives from the different housing bodies. And we all gathered, and I feel like definitely I learned a lot, and it was very beneficial. And I put that all in my report, so I'm not going to double report you. So you guys got it in writing if you read it. I don't need to repeat it. But I did just want to give my gratitude and say that our group is willing to help do a reconvening of those stakeholders without VCRD, because while they're awesome and they bring a lot of facilitation, we're also the ones in the community that have to carry all that forward. And so our group said in October would be a time that we felt like we would have the energy to start kind of planning for that. And that way the things that came in that report, which I included a link to in the report that I gave, I think Sue also has sent you a link to that report, but then we could talk further about some of those recommendations. In light of that, I just submitted a document from Vermont Finance Housing, I think I just got the acronyms wrong, VHFA, and it basically outlines all the different ways housing groups are working around the state. I think it's a really important educational tool. It points out that the different actions that are happening within those different housing groups, and kind of defines, like, you can have a housing meetup that has no body where you have to do all that kind of open meeting law and all of that. And so just defining what people want to do and what body is best for them to do it in based on their commitment, I think might be a really good idea. And then it has a lot of examples of what's happening around the state of Vermont that I think could be beneficial for all of us to be aware of before we get into that October meeting. Let's see here. So we're really excited that we got a grant from CVOEO, and we're able to put together a 2-part ADU event, which involved 45 plus members of the community. And we are seeing that, according to some of the builders in the area, that people are very excited about ADUs. And so that project feels like it's moving forward positively. We have another member, Bert Tepfer, who's working on a fundraising group right now and bringing people together to be able to look at how we can offer those that want to build low interest loans, because that's one of the major impediments. I'll also just add that the VIII funds, which community members have already been able to tap, which is it's one of the most readily available funding for creating new housing in the model that we're using, which is distributed among the residents and community members. And that did just get funded. So now we are focusing on helping people who want to go that route with funding fill out their applications and be able to receive those funds. I will say that while some people are doing 1 bedroom, some people are doing 2 bedrooms, other people are doing 3 bedrooms, the way those funds get distributed into a community has to do with actually making sure that you're getting a variety of housing. It is not just specific for 1 bedrooms. It's actually, they're actually looking at that to make sure that it doesn't get weighted in one direction that doesn't serve your overall housing stock. Lastly, those also help with all the renovations and things as well. And so people can actually, if they do have rentals for serving low income folks, that can also help with housing improvements and efficiency. So the other piece, I'll just say we had our first housing provider meeting, and we now have 3 email lists that's helping us stay in touch with different aspects of the community and what their needs are. So it feels like we're building momentum, and we continue to have a base group of people and volunteers that are showing up and taking on different responsibilities. Because it didn't make it in my report, I'll just add that Bert Tepfer is hosting a meeting to talk about funding on Wednesday, July 16th at 7 p.m. at the library. So if anyone is interested in that, that's the next time that group meets. And let's see if there's anything else on this list. Oh, I did put in my report some of the challenges that we're facing, and I made some requests about those challenges. And it's late, I just want to say whatever we can do to keep creating a positive culture for development to happen in, I would really appreciate that. And there's just been mixtures and different divisiveness that comes in different ways. And I will speak up publicly that someone from the housing committee of the town of Putney did call our funder to discredit the work that we're doing. And that just felt really not so good, like we're all working really hard. And so we all might have different takes on housing, but statewide, everyone understands that. You can have different ideas on how to affect housing in a community, and that's perfectly fine. There's actually nothing wrong with it. So I just want to keep inviting us as a town to recognize that you can have multiple housing solutions, multiple ways of going about it, and that doesn't have to be something that we use our energy to undermine other people's work. And then I want to turn it over to Connie because she had something to contribute too.
Okay. Marcella and I, and actually Karen was involved too, doing a little brainstorming and looking at the task force as a hub and spoke, which is what this schematic is. So we came up with 8 different categories, and these are areas that we are touching on as we go through our monthly meetings. And I think the image here is that we could choose one of these each month and focus on it, bring people in to educate us and to tell us what's going on in the community. It's a draft. It's in process. I'll bring it to the committee on Monday when we have our next monthly meeting and get some feedback on it. But it seems to be a really practical model. Any questions?
Can I just add something to that? So the model here that Connie put together was to sort of exemplify that as a community group, right now, our intention is to maintain ourselves as a community body and not have to become another nonprofit or another organization in town. And we've had conversations with Putney Cares and the Putney Community Center about how we can actually partner with these other entities that already exist and bring community energy into that infrastructure so that we're working in partnership rather than maintaining another organization. That way we do get to keep ourselves very fluid and be a space for community to come together, because housing touches everybody, and then have our different projects be held by other organizations and institutions within the community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Connie. You got it.
Comments from Select Board?
I'm only just trying to absorb the magnitude of the problems involved with housing. And the one thing I would say, sort of in building on what you just said, Marcella, is that it is obviously a multifaceted problem. And consequently, there are multifaceted solutions. And it is really unfortunate if any part of our community is working in opposition to any other part. And we ought to be working in collaboration.
Thank you for that statement, Fletcher.
Laura?
I've kept an eye on this group. I wish I could have been a part of it, but I'm super busy. Kept an eye on it since its formation, and they are doing really great work, and I commend them for that. And I was a little saddened to hear Marcella say that, well, let me take that back. I agree with her that their power is in the fact that they are not structured under a town entity, or at least part of their power is in that, because it's, as many of you in that room know, having a town committee of any sort, they're often hard to get filled, and they're often hard to create energy around, but they're essential. And there are things that a town committee can do that this amazing group maybe can't or would benefit from. And so my hope is, in hearing this amazing energy and having seen what's happening, that that the Putney Housing Task Force can send some energy towards the town committee, and that there can be more collaboration there.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, everyone who's thinking about housing in Putney has to be thinking about young families. Because as I mentioned at your last meeting, and by the way, Chair Coakley asked me to put it in writing, and I did and sent it to her. You know, Vermont is making towns close their primary schools. And basically they're making them an offer they cannot refuse. And they made it even stronger in this legislative session. Okay, we don't have a primary school. What young families do we want to live here? So the priority has to be affordable housing for young families, because that's the future. The old folks, sure, we need senior housing, but I'm an example. I won't be here in a few years, and I know that for sure, because a lot of my contemporaries already aren't. So Putney's future is affordable rental housing near to Putney Central School, to Putney Public Library, and to Cooper's Field, should it realize its potential, now that it is owned by the town of Putney. We're talking about Putney Village here. Now, walking around Putney Village, I see children playing, but there's only two places I see children playing. One is the Dr. Laurel Plant's house on Old Depot Road, and the other is Putney Landing, because Windham and Windsor Housing Trust has built 2- and 3-bedroom affordable housing for young families. Whoever else is developing housing here in Putney is going to need to do the same thing, or we will expire because our elders will die off and young people don't want to live here because there's no primary school. That's a future that many Vermont towns are now facing. They're going to have population where the kids are grown up until the people pass away, and then what? We should not be one of those towns. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Yeah,
Karen?
I'd like to say something, please. I just want to thank the people who are doing the legwork, especially with housing. It is hard, it's challenging, it's sensitive, and housing is critical. We look at infill housing and the impacts, the potential impacts, especially on small municipalities, and smaller developers too, and we can all work together with the large developers, and we have to continue to make those steps and collaborate and network, because we're going to get there. I'm on both sides of this. I just went to a conference last week, and anyone that's willing to do the work, thank you very much. It's a lot of energy, it's a lot of hard work. The one thing I do want to point out is social media. I look at it, and some days I'm disappointed in what I see and what I read. And I have to remind myself, people are entitled to an opinion, right? Free speech. I just don't want us to be reckless with comments, because it hurts. And it hurts the people that don't speak up, and that is wrong. So I just want people to remember, we can work together, we can solve the housing crisis, but we need to do it together.
Mr. Fairman.
Mr. Chairman, seconding what our town manager has just said, I would note that housing is within the jurisdiction of the Vermont Human Rights Commission. So there's a lot that can be done there when people are having the sort of difficulties that our town manager has just described. They have very broad and deep jurisdiction in these matters. And I happen to be helping with something like that right now, so that's why I'm a little more familiar with it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, moving on. Windham Regional Commission Transportation Committee. Colin Bratton.
Colin, thank you for hanging out with us.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I am the transportation planner for the Windham Regional Commission, and the purpose of me being here tonight is just to ask that the town of Putney consider appointing a representative to our Transportation Advisory Committee, which I guess some background is that, the Windham Regional Commission functions on a commissioner structure in which every town in Windham County appoints 2 commissioners to serve on the various committees that we have. We had amended our bylaws to allow an additional specific appointment to the Transportation Advisory Committee outside of the normal 2 commissioner appointments allocated. The reason for that primarily is that the Transportation Advisory Committee is involved in prioritizing infrastructure projects that are sent to VTrans for consideration on the statewide transportation improvement program. This mostly is going to impact things like bridge projects, where towns have the opportunity to submit priority bridge projects to the Windham Regional Commission. The Transportation Advisory Committee is the group that reviews those projects and then makes a decision about which projects are going to be moved forward to be considered by VTrans. And so we don't have the authority to have any sort of final say about what VTrans ultimately decides to fund, but we do play a role in determining which of these projects, given that there's a lot of them. Every town has a significant list of infrastructure projects that they would like to see done. And so because of that, we feel that it's important that as many towns as possible participate in that conversation in order to ensure that that's as fair and as equal of a process for all communities as possible. I would just say, in addition to that role, we also really serve as just a forum for discussing transportation issues that towns are facing. It's a place for towns to discuss what's going on locally, what type of challenges do you have, what kind of projects are you working on, and we also regularly host staff from VTrans, from the Agency of Natural Resources. We have members of our Windham County Legislative Delegation present regularly on transportation issues. I think VTrans and A&R mainly on the policy side, looking at things like public transit or electric vehicles, bicycle and pedestrian planning and policy, things like aquatic organism passage and wildlife crossings, like all of those things, sort of in different ways fall under this umbrella of transportation. And so it's just an opportunity for towns to talk amongst themselves and to also hear from various policymakers in the transportation realm in the state of Vermont. And so that's really all I have to say. Putney is one of the towns that isn't currently represented, and we'd be very happy if the town, might consider appointing someone. Obviously, I know another meeting is not always something people are super excited about, but we meet every other month, more or less, and I would be very happy if you might have someone you think could be interested. I'd be very happy to meet with them. Specifically to discuss the committee and what we do and what the commitment looks like and all of that stuff. Yeah, that's more or less the spiel, I guess I would say.
Thank you, Colin.
Myself.
I just had a quick question as to whether or not you include or involve youth, since that I'm just aware of a lot of teens that have been talking about transportation and was kind of curious in terms of appointments, how that might work.
So the appointment is, it's really pretty broad. It's at the discretion of the select board. The select board would just have to, it could be any Putney resident. There's no real sort of rules or restrictions on that. They would just have to be, specifically identified and appointed by the select board.
Yep.
Thanks.
So
I have one other question. Thank you, Colin, for that overview. Is it necessary for someone to serve on the committee to also serve on the Windham Regional Commission as a Putney representative, or can you just be on the committee?
We had updated, as I said, updated the bylaws to add an additional appointment for each town, specific to the transportation committee. So this would be, it could be someone who also serves a role as one of the two commissioners from Putney, but it could be someone from outside of that. You would, in being appointed to the transportation committee, you would become a Windham Regional Commissioner and also be able to participate in the full commission meetings and other, kind of Windham Regional wide conversations. But it does not have to be one of the two existing commissioners.
That's very helpful, because some people might not want both jobs. And I will just note that we only have one representative at the Windham Regional Commission right now.
Yeah, I was gonna, so we did secure one.
Yes, we did.
So we still need,
And Toomey.
right,
Yes.
so we need another one.
Yes.
So if anybody's interested in serving.
Mr. Ferment's raising his hand for that.
It went down. So if anybody's interested in serving on the Windham Regional Commission, it's an opportunity to serve the town and the region. They do very important work. They are the pass-through for a lot of grant money that comes our way, and they work with they provide technical assistance for a lot of grants and projects. So they're very impactful. So if anybody wants to do that, we would be eternally grateful. And does anybody want to serve on this transportation committee?
Mr. Fairman.
Mr. Chairman, a question for the speaker. You mentioned that you deal with VTrans during doing various aspects of transportation. How about roundabouts?
Well, not specifically about roundabouts.
we have specific transportation issues in town, and one of them is.
We have an issue in Putney, the intersection of Putney Landing Road, which is I-91 northbound exit to 4 Mount 18. You know it.
Yeah.
It's also Route 5 and a number of businesses that have direct driveway cuts into it. Putney Food Co-op on the other side of the street, and Putney Fire Department just down the street, new housing going in right there. It is an extremely complex intersection where we who keep an eye on it see really bad stuff happening there all the time, among other things being people who ignore signs that say do not enter here. So they go through anyway and wind up in the mix. Now, obviously, we had a discussion with this with a consulting engineer probably 3 years ago. There is room to plop down a roundabout there. Question is, how do we get a roundabout? So, can a representative on this committee work toward getting a roundabout there?
I mean, yes, I think that's something that could be discussed. I mean, I guess, say that when you're dealing with the state highway, VTrans has a very specific process that they use in terms of making those kind of decisions about what, is and isn't allowable on the state highway. And I think that's part of our role as the regional commission, is to help towns, navigate those channels and get these kind of things considered. I would say that, I certainly would be happy to discuss that specific issue in more detail and talk about what that process might look like. And we do have input on VTrans project development process. But the final decisions about the state highways are going to be made, in Montpelier. So I would say, yes, that's certainly something we could consider, but I think it's more about kind of navigating the decision-making channels that the state has. If that was a sufficient answer to your question.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Colin, could I ask you an impertinent question? Are you related to Farron Bratton?
I am not. No, I am not from this area originally. I grew up in the Boston area. I'm not. It's not a super common name, and I have been asked that before. But no relation as far as I know. Anyways.
Well, too bad. He was a great guy.
Was.
Any other comments from Selctboard? Public comment?
Try to find somebody else.
We'll do our best.
And so I would just say, Karen, you have my contact information, obviously, so please feel free if there's anyone who might be interested or has any questions. As I said, I'm happy to speak with them directly. So if you would like to give my contact information out, please do.
Thank you. I will do that.
How long is the appointment for? What's the length of the commitment? If someone were to do it, like, is it for a year, or how long?
They're usually, the towns make appointments annually to Windham Regional Commission committees.
Thank you. Sorry about that. That's helpful.
All right.
Thank you, Colin.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks.
All right, moving on. Parkman Wood Road Box Culvert recommended contract award.
Moving on quickly, my recommendation is. No. So this is Parkman Wood Road. The existing culvert blew out from one of our storms. So we're going to be putting in a precast concrete box culvert up there. There was a on-site pre-bid meeting, and that was on June 9th. 4 contractors showed up. It was a mandatory meeting. 2 bids were received on June 18th. Bill Harlow and Sons Excavating had a bid of $78,000, and Daniels Construction had a bid of $91,500. We do have FEMA funding for this box culvert. It is secured. We have $176,200. FEMA will apply $158,580 to the project and the non-federal share, which is our match, along with ERAF, which is Emergency Relief Assistance Funding. Yeah, something like that. $17,620. So, for a project of that magnitude, it'll be less than $17,000 for the town. My recommendation, after consultation with the road superintendent, Lenny Howard, the fourth, the town manager recommends to the select board to award the Parkman Wood Road box culvert to Bill Harlow and Sons Excavating LLC. The proper certificate of insurance is in place. There is a motion on the paperwork if somebody would like to, unless you have more questions.
I just had a quick, so when you say it's FEMA money and it's secured, so it's been obligated?
It has been obligated to the town, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We haven't received it yet though.
No, we have to expense and then
then
request
we have to-
reimbursement. And I've been on
Is it
them
coming through
because
FEMA or is it coming through Vermont Emergency?
Vermont Emergency
Okay, so they do have the
Management.
money.
Yes.
Alright. Okay. That's all I have.
Yep.
I make a motion to award the Parkman Wood Road box culvert FEMA project to Bill Harlow and Sons Excavating LLC in the amount not to exceed $78,000.
Second.
Comment, public comment? Comment from the board? All in favor?
Aye. Thank you. Internal financial control checklist, review and approval. So this is state mandated that the town treasurer, who's Kim Monroe, shall, Howard, fill out this checklist, sign it, and then present it to the select board. The select board does need to review it, and if you don't have any questions, you're okay with it, you approve it, and then it goes into the select board binder with the minutes that it doesn't go anywhere else, it just stays with the town.
I don't remember this. I don't remember doing this before.
We have never done this before. Kim happened to go to a VLCT seminar, webinar,
Yeah.
and she learned that we needed to be
supposed to do
doing
it.
this. And I'm surprised it's not part of the audit.
Yeah, you'd think it would be that we did this, right?
Yep. So we're in here. Oh, right here. So the statute was, which is Title 24, Chapter 51. So 24-1571, accounts reports. The town treasurer shall annually, on or before June 30, complete and provide to the select board a copy of the document made available by the auditor of accounts pursuant to 32 VSA 163(11) regarding internal financial controls. So this is the checklist, folks.
Okay. Well, I make a motion to approve the internal financial controls checklist for municipalities, and authorize the chair to sign it.
Second.
Discussion?
One question, Karen, on here it says have select board members attended financial trainings.
Have you?
I have.
No, what's available?
Go to the VLCT website. There's all kinds of trainings.
There's one called Finance for
It's really
Finance for-
boring.
Select
for
Board.
Select board dummies?
Yeah, and
Yes.
it's
That sounds like me.
It's grueling.
it's grueling, and the last time I took it, there was somebody on there that was really excited about her job. Boy, I was so glad that she liked her job, because a lot of what she was saying was like, phew. But you know,
Was that Sarah Macy?
that might have been.
Yeah.
she was just making it sound like it was so much fun,
Yeah.
and I just
She
wasn't-
loves it.
and I was just like, I'm glad you like the job.
Yep.
But yeah, there is definitely.
Had been Sarah.
It's a good course. You might want to take it a couple of times.
Any public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
You're up again, Karen.
Municipal tax rate review and approval. In your packet is the proposed new tax rate for municipal only. So in the spreadsheet, you will see the proposed 25 tax rate, which will go into effect with our new tax billing. That hopefully will be out in July, barring that the state education tax comes to us on time.
Which it hasn't in the past 3
No.
or 4 years.
No. So basically, amount to be raised, so that's your operating expenses. We added the voted articles, which were 2. Anticipated revenue, subtotal for your general fund taxes. So the tax rate, just on the general fund, folks, is 0.3713 cents, which is down 0.0223 cents from last year. Highway fund, again, operating expenses, anticipated revenue, and then what needs to be raised for the operating budget. So the proposed tax rate is 0.3054, down from 24 by 0.0042. So basically, it's level funded budgets, folks. And we talked about this before, that in order to do that, we took some surplus, offset what needed to be raised, and then I cut out $155,000 out of the general fund. And I will repeat, I probably will regret that, but it is done and we will work with it. The local agreement, which is the other tax rate, and that's veterans and voted exemptions for like the nonprofits, like Putney Cares, Putney Community Center. There's a few other ones in there. That went down considerably what needed to be raised because Cooper's Field is now owned by Putney. So it's no longer as an exemption. So that rate is 0.0036, down from last year, 0.0020. So the bottom line is that the tax rate has decreased from last year, 0.0285, so 3 cents, which means the new tax rate in cents is 0.6803. Last year it was 0.7088.
Woohoo.
Yeah.
Do we have a sense of what the school rate will be?
I can tell you that when their report came out for FY 25 and 26, what is proposed for Putney for homestead is 1.347, which was down from last year, and then the non-residential rate is 1.791. But that's subject to change by the state of Vermont.
Right.
So
Just curious.
So we'll see how that plays out.
Okay.
So again, municipal tax rate only, 0.6803. It is my recommendation to select board to adopt this municipal tax rate of 0.6803 for the tax year 25.
I move to adopt a municipal tax rate of 0.6803 for tax year 2025.
Second.
Public comment? Comment from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Wasn't that exciting? You were gonna go yay.
I did, oh yay, well, I did think I did it too early, so I missed my cue.
Eileen, you're up.
Okay, all right, so this is the traffic ordinance. Oh, we were gonna put a clean copy in here.
There is a clean copy in that folder right there.
There is,
Yes.
all right, so, we, last meeting, discussed moving the speed limit down from 25 to 20, and we since found out that state statute does not allow us to do that. 25 is the lowest they will let us go down. Because the state, I don't know why. I was joking with Fletcher earlier that they don't want us to put it all the way down to 0, and then traffic doesn't move at all, so, you know, you can't trust towns with anything. So, anyway, we remain at 25 for section 5. We added Old Route 5, Alice Holway Drive, Carroll Brown Way. We now have the town highway numbers, which is Old Route 5 is 5, Alice Holway Drive is 79, Carroll Brown Way is what?
I want to look at
Oh,
the
clean
copy so I
copy.
can read it.
It's 78.
I can't make anyone happy.
And you can make some people happy, you just can't make everyone happy. That's
There you go.
Okay. And then the only other change besides changing selectmen to select board was the throughways, which
Yes,
is somewhere. Where is that?
it is section 7. So it's on page 7 of 9, maybe?
Yeah, and that was just to account for the three-way stop on Old Route 5. So basically calling Old Route 5 a throughway so that we can justify having 2 stop signs there. So that's it. There should be a clean copy there. So do we want to adopt it? Or do we want to wait until a public hearing so that we can have a public hearing and then adopt it? I mean, we've talked about it several times now.
Yeah, I haven't
Don't think
legally
this is
worn
a-
this one, so.
Huh?
I haven't legally worn this, so.
Yeah.
I guess we will wait to adopt
It does say drought, yeah, so why don't we put a public hearing or we're approve this the next meeting and then we'll go then with that clean copy. Unless you want to change
Riding on
anything.
handlebars was illegal.
Right? It was written in 1975, that was a thing.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, first to Selectperson Tulloch, you're doing excellent and intricate work. Thank you. I noticed just one small point. I took a look at the statute, and the statute regarding driveways says you can't block a driveway. It doesn't mention anything about distance of parking from a driveway. And what I'm wondering about is 20 feet is longer than many passenger vehicles. And I'm wondering if 20 feet is actually more clearance than is needed on either side of the driveway. And I'm wondering if in some places in Putney, such as on Kimball Hill, the parking spaces may already be within 20 feet of a driveway, meaning that we would lose parking spaces when there's not enough parking spaces up there. So given that the statute doesn't dictate how far from a driveway, it just says don't block a driveway, I'm taking the liberty of suggesting that you consider perhaps a smaller distance from a driveway. I'm not going to mention a figure, but just say 20 feet sounds like it may be more than is necessary, especially as it's on both sides of the driveway.
There's a lot of things in here that are funky, like riding on handlebars. somebody earlier suggested that we add Putney Mountain to the 25-mile-an-hour route, which I totally agree with. I was on that road the other day and I couldn't go faster than 30 anyway. But this was really specifically, these changes were really specific to the problem area that has been identified recently, and with a commitment to really revisit the entire thing, because like I said, it was written in 1975. So I agree with you, but I think we're just gonna leave those pieces in place for now in order to get the speed limit down from 30 to 25 on the, or 35 in some cases, to 25 on the problem areas.
Pleasure.
I have some similar problems with stopping on curve, hill, or used part of street. A curve, that is totally undefined. Most of our roads are curvy. So,
I mean, I think probably what we want to do is probably take a modern template and rework it. And I think one of the things we wanted to do is wait until the comprehensive village plan was done, because I think they'll probably have suggestions on speed limits, traffic calming, all that kind of thing. Plus the laws have changed since 1975, so I'm sure there's a lot of things that no longer apply in here. This was really just a quick thing to get the speed limits established.
Mr. Fairman?
Mr. Chairman, while the select person makes some excellent points, if an ordinance contradicts reality, then it will be reality that has to be adjusted. And the owners of those driveways are going to be the people who ask for that. So what I will do before you consider this draft again is, in the areas where I've thought of, where I've mentioned, since I walk around all the time, I'll bring my 25-foot tape measure and I'll measure them. And I'm with you on that, or you're with me. A couple of Ramadas here. I'll let you know when I find out.
Thank you.
Well, I'm betting that no parking space is 20 feet away from any driveway. That's my bet.
I don't think you need to. We can't enforce it anyway. This is really reiterate this with the whole point of revisiting this at this point. And the select board did do this, I think, that in 2005.
We did. Yes.
Just to add.
Oh no, we've done it since then.
Okay, so it's just to add. It's just to add little pieces to it to get the speed limit down on those roads, recognizing that there are some weird things in here that do not match reality.
The only comment I want to throw out there is when we revisit this later on, we need to look at the driveway access policy as well, because some of that language may trigger something in here.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, I tried really hard not to open up a major can of worms by just doing that.
Okay. Nothing under select board old business, so we're gonna move to executive session. Number 1, VSA 313A2 lease agreements, A3 evaluation of a public officer or employee. Are we making a decision?
We have to leave them.
Hang on a minute. Lease agreement, evaluation code. I don't believe so, right, Fletcher?
I don't think so. We need to release right now.
And we're inviting Karen.
I move to go into executive session under 1 VSA 313A2 lease agreement and A3 evaluation of public officer or employee.
Okay, and our next meeting is July 9th.
We should second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.